So UFC 316 has just wrapped up, and these are my thoughts about the fights on the prelims and the main card. Merab Dvalishvili is undeniably the greatest bantamweight of all time, in my opinion. And not just in my opinion, but just speaking facts, to be honest. He is just the greatest bantamweight the world has ever seen. Dominic Cruz has nothing to do against Merab. Merab is leagues ahead of everybody else. And if you don't believe me, then take a look at this. He joins the UFC. He gets 2 losses, is pretty lucky to be kept on, if you ask me. He then goes on a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 fight win streak, followed up by another 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 fights, which is just insanely impressive. And if you take a look at who he has won against, Brad Katona, Casey Kinney, some of these guys you don't know, but he has a win against John Dodson, Cody Stamann, Marlon Moraes. Now we're starting to get more serious. Like Marlon Moraes was actually a title contender at some point. Jose Aldo, a legend of the sport. Peter Yan, a prime Peter Yan, who he dominated. Henry Cejudo, he picked up, he dominated Henry Cejudo. Sean O'Malley, Umar Nurmagomedov, undefeated. Sean O'Malley, undefeated. And now again, Sean O'Malley, not even by decision, but by submission in a north-south choke. Merab, this guy is absolutely undeniable at the top of the bantamweight GOAT debate. And he is clearly, in my opinion, in the top 10 fighters of all time, To be the bantamweight GOAT, you have to be in the top 10 of all time. Bantamweight, in my opinion, is the most skilled weight class there is out there. Even more skilled than lightweight, and a tad more skilled than featherweight, I would say. You have Merab, who is not the most skilled, but he has such an alien-like cardio that he can just hold up for 25 minutes, not get tired, not slow down at all. You have Sean O'Malley, who is, it's hard to say that he's the absolutely best striker still in the UFC, but he is up there. He is one of the best strikers in the UFC. You have Umar Nurmagomedov, who won against Corey Sandhagen really impressively, was undefeated, an absolutely great fighter. Another win against Sean O'Malley. Henry Cejudo, gold medalist in wrestling, double champion in both flyweight and bantamweight. Peter Yan, former bantamweight champion. Jose Aldo, bantamweight title challenger, and a long reigning defending featherweight champ in the early days. Marlon Moraes, former title challenger. Cody Stamann, John Dodson, known names. And he's not just winning, he's dominating every single fight. The Umar fight was somewhat close. The Sean O'Malley, the first Sean O'Malley fight was somewhat competitive. But other than that, he is dominating every single one he has ever faced. So let's just get that out of the way. Merab is undeniably the bantamweight GOAT. We move on. Kayla Harrison gets the submission against Juliana Pena. Pena's takedown defense has always been horrible, and it showed in this fight. Kayla Harrison she even gets deducted a point for an illegal kick. Pena. Kayla Harrison doing what she does best. It looks like we're gonna get a fight against Harrison and Nunes, which could be really interesting, because right now it doesn't seem like there are any tests for Harrison at this point. Joe Pyfers gets the decision win against Kelvin Gastelum. Not as impressive as I would have hoped for Joe Pyfers. I thought that he would be the first guy to KO Kelvin Gastelum. He didn't. Kelvin Gastelum, he's washed. You know, UFC just released this guy. He's not disciplined enough to be there. To be honest, you know, he should be. He shouldn't even be at welterweight. He should be at lightweight or something. He just can't stop eating, and he doesn't care to cut weight. It seems to me. Mario Bautista. I picked this fight right. Mario by decision, unanimous decision in this one. Patchy mix. You know, it's time that we start learning that these Bellator guys, these PFL guys, they just aren't at the same level as they are in the UFC, you know. You can be a Bellator champion like Patchy Mix, who only has 1 defeat on his record, come into the top 10 of the UFC, probably even top 15, and just, I wouldn't say get schooled, because it wasn't like a total beatdown but you know, there's just a big skill gap between UFC and every other promotion, and this fight is a proof of that. It's time that we start giving Bautista a big fight up in the rankings. You know, he's on an 8-fight win streak. I get that he's not the most popular, but we need to give him, you know, something. I'm thinking Song Yadong or Henry Cejudo if he hasn't retired yet. That would be interesting. Something in those lines. Welterweight bout between Vicente Luque and Kevin Holland. This was, I predicted the winner right. I had Kevin Holland going into this fight, but in the manner he won, I would have never guessed. He won the fight by submission, and not just by any submission. He won this fight by a Darce choke, which is what Vicente Luque is known for. He's known for that Darce choke. For Kevin Holland to go in there and get the submission, the Darce choke, was really impressive, if you ask me. This shows that Kevin Holland maybe just, you know, he still has what it takes to be in the top 10 is probably stretching it a bit, because welterweight is so incredibly stacked as of right now. There's so many young guys, but Kevin Holland is definitely a ranking worthy, and he showed in this fight. There were some hairy moments for both of them where, you know, in the first round Holland was piecing up Vicente Luque, but Luque was landing some back. But this was a great win for Kevin Holland, and he needed this one, if you ask me. Vicente, he's just not the same guy as he used to be. Alright. One of the most impressive performances of the night were definitely Joshua Vane against Bruno Silva. Joshua Vane's boxing is just on another level. He has the best boxing, technical boxing. He has the fastest hands, the most precise hands in the flyweight division. Maybe even in the UFC, because the flyweight division has a more. The flyweights are just more skilled than the heavier weight classes. You know, I don't know how Bruno Silva actually survived 14 minutes. That was somewhat impressive, I guess. Joshua Vane doesn't have that power, but holy shit, he has speed, he has technique, he has output. This guy can go very far in the rankings, and, you know, at 23 years old, possibly be a champ someday. Azamat Musakanov against Brenson Ribeiro. This fight played out pretty much as I expected. Azamat Musakanov getting the KO in the first round. Brenson Ribeiro, this was a weird matchmaking. I get that his original fight, I can't even remember who that was against, but he pulled out. Brenson Ribeiro stepped in. You know, and you have to take these chances sometimes. However, Azamat, he is just too fast and too powerful. And too technical even. He doesn't look that, you know, that intimidating, but he really has great technique. He has great power in that left hand. And he has incredible speed. This guy just doesn't fight a lot. And that's what really is holding him back, I believe, you know, because this guy could go very far. I think he could get into the top 7 or 8, if you ask me. Possibly even beating someone in the top 7 or top 8. As we get on to the heavyweight bout between Sergey Spivak and Walter Cortes Acosta. Walter Cortes Acosta getting this fight done by decision, unanimous decision. This fight really just shows how much of a skill gap there actually is between heavyweights and flyweights. If you take these two fights, this heavyweight fight and this flyweight fight, and compare them in speed, in skill, in output, in everything, in even in mentality, I want to say, because Spivak doesn't look like someone who wants to fight, and Walter Cortes Acosta at sometimes didn't even look like someone who wanted to fight in there. This just shows that the lighter weight classes are more skilled, are better, are more prepared mentally and physically. But anyways, Walter Cortes Acosta is probably going to be ranked number 7. I don't see him go any way higher than this, you know. Number 6 is Jailton Almeida, and Jailton Almeida, we all know he would absolutely murder Walter Cortes Acosta. So I think he has finally hit his ceiling to how far he can go in the UFC. But you know what? In the future he will be a good gatekeeper. He has great leg kicks. He has, at least when he's fresh, he actually has a good jab and good body shots, which probably won him this fight. You know, Sergey Spivak was really getting annoyed by those body shots that was holding him back, and he couldn't get the grappling going. You know, great takedown defense for Walter Cortes Acosta. He is actually he's a decent heavyweight, but he's just not athletic in any way. All right, the last fight I'm gonna break down was between K.S. Williams and Andreas Gustafsson. The Swedish Viking gets it done by decision, you know, relentless pressure, relentless pace, output, clinch. K.S. Williams, I really expected K.S. to go out there and get the knockout win in this fight. I predicted it wrong. And to be fair, Andreas Gustafsson, he looked like someone who could take a shot and give it back to K.S. Williams, you know. The first round, it wasn't the most exciting fight, not the most boring either, but Andreas Gustafsson goes out there and puts a pace on K.S. Williams. K.S. looked like someone in the second and especially in the third round who knew he had lost, who knew that he couldn't keep up, and he was mentally defeated after the first round, and yeah, that's what got Gustafsson the win. I don't see him go too far, however. You know, his wrestling wasn't the best, his boxing wasn't the best. His best attribute is clearly his pressure, his output. And yeah, there you have it. UFC 316, was actually a really good card, really entertaining. You know, we got a lot of finishes, and the decision fights were somewhat entertaining. We got a submission here, submission here, submission here, a lot of submissions actually. KO, and the decisions, you know, they were decent. There weren't any straight up stinkers in this card. But yeah, that's it for me, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember to subscribe to the Submission Addiction, and I will see you next time. Bye.